Call of the Wild, Chapter 10. Into the Wild. Buck began to sleep outside at night, staying away from the camp for days at a time, 2 days or 3 days. Once he came back up the gorge into the land of forest and streams and stayed there for a week, looking for his wild brother, a wolf. He killed his meat as he traveled and fished in the streams. Near one stream, he killed a big black bear in a terrible fight that showed the fierceness, strength he still had hidden inside him. Buck's hunger for the taste of blood was stronger now than ever before. He was a killer, living by eating the animals that he caught. Buck was living life at its best in a hard world where only the strongest could stay alive. He was intelligent and clever at getting what he wanted, and he had learned many difficult lessons during his hard life in the Northland. All these things made him as great and strong as any wild animal. His body was working perfectly. When he saw or heard something, he could jump toward it or away from it twice as fast as any husky dog. His muscles were as strong as iron, and every part of him was full of life. Every time Buck left camp and went into the forest, he became at once a thing of nature, a thing of the wild. He would kill a rabbit as it slept and catch in mid-air the chipmunks that jumped a little too late into the trees. Even fish were not too quick for him. When the fall came, in November, there were more moose in the forest, moving slowly down from the mountains to spend the winters in the warmer valleys below. Buck had already killed a baby moose, but now he wanted a more difficult fight. One day, near the top of the river, he saw a group of 20 moose, and among them a great bull, a large male moose. The bull stood nearly 2 meters above the ground, with great wide antlers, and he roared angrily when he saw Buck. He had the arrow of a Native American hunter in his back, and because he was hurt, he was bad-tempered, quickly angry, and full of hate. Buck wanted to get the bull away from the herd, the group of moose, and he jumped about in front of it, barking won't, 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 so that it could not move forward. Then, when it became so angry that it ran at Buck, he moved away quickly. At first, when he did this, 2 or 3 of the younger bulls ran at Buck, so that the great bull could move forward with the rest of the herd. But Buck was patient, and after half a day he was still stopping the great bull from moving forward. The sun was going down, and the younger moose knew they had to move to lower ground. At last, the herd moved away, while the great bull stood and watched them leave. He could not follow because in front of him jumped around this terrible animal who would not let him go. From then on, day and night, Buck never left the bull and never allowed it to eat, drink, or rest. The moose's head dropped lower and it became weaker and weaker. It began to stand a lot with its nose to the ground, and Buck had more time to rest and drink. At these moments, watching the bull carefully, it seemed to Buck that he could feel a change in the land. Just as the moose were coming into the land, other kinds of life were too. And the forest and stream, small river, and air seemed to tell of it. He could hear nothing and see nothing, but he knew that the land was different and that strange things were happening. Buck is turning into a wild animal. He's not a gentle dog anymore. He is turning into something wild. At last, at the end of the 4th day, Buck pulled the moose down. For a day and a night, he stayed next to the dead animal, eating and sleeping. Then, rested and strong, he started back to the camp. As he traveled, he could feel more and more strongly the change in the land. There was life here that was different from the life that had been here in the summer. It was not just a feeling that told him this now. The birds sang of it, the squirrels talked about it, and even the wind whispered of it. Several times he stopped and smelled the morning air, then moved faster than before. He could feel that something terrible was going to happen or had happened already. So now, in the story, Buck has a feeling that something has changed. As he came nearer to the camp, Buck came upon a new smell, which led straight towards the little cabin and John Thornton. His nose was telling him a story, of which only the ending was still unknown. There was silence in the forest. The birds had gone, and the squirrels were hiding. Something has happened. As he moved along silently, another smell suddenly pulled him away. He followed it under some trees, and there he found Nig lying dead. Nig is one of John Thornton's dogs. Nig lying dead with an arrow in each side of his body. Further on, Buck found one of the other sled dogs crashing around, half dead. He moved around it without even stopping. He could hear the sound of voices coming from the camp. Moving forwards slowly, his body low to the ground, he found Hans lying on his face. Hans is a friend of John Thornton. His body covered in arrows. At the same time, at the same moment, where the cabin had once been, Buck saw something that made the hair jump on his neck and shoulders. Buck saw something that scared him. He saw something that scared him. Anger ran through him, and he forgot about being clever or thinking carefully. Because of his great love for John Thornton, he lost his head. If you lose your head, you stop thinking carefully. You are not thinking anymore.